Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Chris Bogler's Album Club. As usual, I have with me Ben.
Hi, people right now.
Well, that sounded really garbled on my end, but I guess that's okay. Matthew.
Come on, baby, light my fire.
And of course, Fan.
I take another step. Don't blame it on yourself.
Alright, y'all ready to hear what today's albums are?
Sure.
Matthew sounds annoyed now, but I don't think he'll be annoyed when he hears what these albums are. Today's albums are Stop Making Sense by Talking Heads. And I'm going in on a branch here trying to figure out how this is pronounced, but Illmatic by Nas.
Ooh.
Like, this is actually a good pairing.
Ooh.
I mean, it's not a pairing that makes sense, but it's good albums anyway.
This is.
So,
Ben?
initial reactions, Ben, we're going to you. You already kind of gave one, but continue.
Yes, I mean, I actually haven't listened to Illmatic, but I do know some songs off of it. I haven't listened to Stop Making Sense. I'm a big fan of Talking Heads. These are, my understanding, quality. And, well, they don't really go together. They're making it interesting.
Alright, Matthew.
Talking Heads is a band which is I respect and one that I've been acquainted with. And this is like probably the greatest live album of all time. As for Illmatic by Nas, Nas is one of my favorite rappers. This is his magnum opus, which is funny enough his introduction, his first album, and I'm just looking forward to listening to his album.
So, Matthew, are you saying Nas is like the Pearl Jam of hip hop?
Maybe.
Alright, Fan.
So actually, I went to go see Stop Making Sense. Literally, I just looked it up 1 year and 1 day ago when it came out on a release. Because I remember I went the day before Columbus Day, and I looked that up. And so, big fan of this one. I don't really know who Nas is. I definitely heard of him, but no real thoughts. I'm excited to listen to the album though.
Alright, well, as for me, I'm sure if you all were watching my stream just a second ago, I was holding up a copy of Stop Making Sense on vinyl. So I have it, obviously. If I haven't seen the movie, or I've been meaning to watch it, I think it's on HBO. As well,
I've seen bits of it.
yeah, I've seen clips of it, some of the individual songs, sections on YouTube, though, before. I do have the album. As for Illmatic, no clue really about this. I kind of have heard of Nas. I'm assuming Lil Nas X is named after Nas. But other than that, that's basically it. But I know it's a widely acclaimed hip hop album from when is it, like late 90s, early 2000s?
Came out in '94.
Oh, okay. I was off by some. I was thinking it was late 90s, but that's mid 90s. So, see, I don't know a huge amount, but Matthew's here, so he'll know. So we're gonna go listen to these albums, and we'll be right back with our thoughts on them. Alright, we are back and have listened to the albums. And as usual, we're gonna start with you, Ben, and the first album was Stop Making Sense by Talking Heads. Ben, what were your thoughts on this album?
Well, the first question is I listened to this with multiple different track listings for different times I listened to it. Because the track listing on Spotify is this like expanded edition. But I also went back and listened to the original. So that's already confusing, number one. But otherwise, this album is really good. It is an extremely great live album. The songs actually do sound quite a bit different than their studio versions. So they all able to be evaluated, well, not entirely, but partially based off of their the distinct sound on this album. I really enjoyed it. I already like Talking Heads a lot. So basically every track on it stood out to me. I mean, I can list with songs I thought were the best, but those are songs I already thought were the best. Like I thought Psycho Hello was great, and the House is great, Before This Pill is great, Western The Lifetime's great, Lifetime Lifetime's great, Take Me to the Rebel Group is great. These are all great songs. They're great in the studio versions, and they're great on this too. So, yeah, I really enjoyed listening to this album. It was really fun.
Matthew.
I thought this album was excellent. I think every single track in this album is like amazing. I think it's all killer and no filler, which is something that are a few albums that we have listened to have that, where there's a couple of tracks that were filler and but it's mostly killer, or just mostly filler but no killers. But I think this is just fantastic. My favorite tracks were Burning Down the House, Life During Wartime, and Girlfriend is Better. And yeah, it's just like an incredible piece of work. It's probably, outside of their studio work, I think this is like Talking Heads' crowning achievement in music. And yeah, I have nothing but great things to say about this album.
Fan.
Okay, so I went total, like, nerd mode on this one. This album is unbelievably good. This whole tour, the 1983 tour for Speaking in Tongues. Actually, my dad actually saw this show. So it's the same exact show.
Cool.
He got to see it live, and he was like, yeah, it was really good. It's like, same thing, they set up the stage, everything. So, and I remember as a little kid, he rented the DVD from the library, and so we just watched it one day, and I just have distinct memories of being like 6 or 7 watching this. So this album is really kind of deeply ingrained in me. So I did go kind of nerd mode with this being a live album. You can probably put a skip to this portion button on here, Chris, if you want. But so I actually broke down all of the songs from each album to kind of just represent what they were playing at that time. So I think this is a very particular snapshot of the band, because this was like actually the last tour. So I kind of figured it would be cool to break down everything. So they had 5 albums before this, and the show was 19 songs. So they had 1 song from the first album, Psycho Killer, 3 from the second album, more songs about buildings and food, those being Send Me an Angel, Found a Job, and Take Me to the River. Feel Music had 4, Heaven, Cities, Life During Wartime, and I Zimbra, although Cities and I Zimbra are not on the movie. So that is something to note. As well as Main and Light with 2 songs, Once in a Lifetime, Cross-Eyed, and Painless. Speaking in Tongues, this being the Speaking in Tongues 2, it had 6 songs, Slippery People, Burning Down the House, Making Flippy Floppy, Swamp, This Must Be the Place, Girlfriend is Better, and then actually 2 songs from David Byrne's solo album, The Catherine Wheel, What a Day It Was, and Big Business, although Big Business is not on the movie as well, and Tom Tom Club. Chris and Tina's band had Genius of Love from the self-titled debut. So obviously, this being a Speaking Tongues tour, the majority of the songs are from that. On the original LP, there were 4 from Speaking in Tongues and 1 from Talking Heads 77, The Main and Light, more songs about Field Music and Catherine Wheel. Each had 1 representative. All the big hits from those albums, and then 4 from the new one. I just feel it's kind of fun to break that down a little bit, with this being, like I said, such a big snapshot, such an important part of the career, and what they're showcasing at this point, pretty much before they went on a pretty much kind of weird hiatus / breakup, where things, they still had a few albums after this, but it was kind of, this is pretty much the peak of the relevance in multiple ways. And of course, the movie directed by Jonathan Demme, of course, film buffs Snow, also the director of Philadelphia and Silence of the Lambs. So that's cool.
Ooh, those are great movies.
Director here. Just wanted to shout him out because he's a great director and did a really good job on this. But obviously, it's mostly about music. I think each song on this is gonna make you want to get up and dance. I mean, this is a dance album. First and foremost, I mean, best songs. I mean, Outside and Painless is definitely my favorite for reason. Fish plays the song a lot. They actually played that whole Remain in the Light album. And that's one that they continue to play throughout the years. Also played Cities and lots of other Talking Heads songs, but that's the big one for me. Especially with that intro going into the fast part, the actual record part. The live intro to Outside and Painless is great, super funky. I mean, if you're not getting down to Girlfriend is Better, Take Me to the River, I mean, Life During Wartime, best song on this album.
Yeah, I would not disagree with that.
I mean, if you're not getting down, you probably don't have a soul. I don't know what to tell you.
If you're not dancing like David Byrne during Life During Wartime and Girlfriend is Better, you're not living life. They're just funky.
Well, either that or you have arthritis.
Even then, man, this will get you going. This will kill it. This album is just tremendous front to back. 10 out of 10.
I just don't think my knees can do that. And I don't even have arthritis. I just don't think they can do that.
To be clear, because I don't think I communicate this very well for whatever reason, I really, 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 really enjoyed this album. I really enjoyed grooving out to do it while I was walking. It was really good, and I wish I could have danced to it, except for I was walking. I guess I could have done that, though. But yes, my joints could take it, I think.
I mean, I was sitting down and I was still moving. Even like I was just sitting down and doing whatever. And I was still like moving back and forth. I could not. It was like calling to me.
It's infectious. I think one thing I would say is like this. I also both listened to the album and also watched Stop Making Sense, which is like the greatest live concert movie of all time. It has a very almost like when you see David Byrne's perform, it's almost like a religious experience where it's like you're at a prayer meeting and someone is like, they lay their hands upon you and you have like an ecstatic reaction, and it's like this album and this like movie, it's very infectious. You have to dance to this, and it just shows that like I think the best Talking Heads album that they made on studio is Speaking in Tongues. I know that. I think Remain in Light is kind of the one where I think it's the most popular one. I guess it's the one when you see the greatest albums of all time. Remain in Light is the one that is up there, but I think Speaking in Tongues is their best work. But this is probably their crowning achievement that they have done for music.
All right. Well, as for me, okay, I watched the movie for the first time last night. I have listened to the album before. I've got the LP here sitting right next to me. I've got its backup. I've got the track listing. Of course, well, it's on the back of the sleeve, but and after watching the movie and considering the LP, I will say I did like this album. I think everything on this album is good, but if you're listening to the deluxe version, that's the one on Spotify, that's good. If you're going by original LP track listing, though, I will say I don't think the original LP track listing is great. It doesn't have Heaven, it doesn't have Cross-Eyed and Painless, those are just off the top of my head. There's some other songs missing, too. It doesn't have Genius of Love, although that's probably due to some sort of rights issue, maybe, but more so than the other two, but they did include What a Day That Was, though, so you think maybe they could have gotten it on there. Really should have been a double LP, although I understand the Talking Heads had literally just done a double live LP. But if they could do 2 live albums in this close of proximity to each other, surely they could have done both of them double in this close of proximity to each other, especially with the movie having been a success. As for the quality of the actual music itself, though, the actual music itself is great. Each performance is great. I will say, and this will probably come up a bit more when I discuss which album I thought was better, I will say none of these live versions or anything I like particularly more than the studio version. Some of them I think were just as great, but I wouldn't say any of them I like specifically better. They're not the same. Excuse me. They're not exactly the same, which does, of course, make it work as a live album. If they were exactly the same, it wouldn't be amazing. It wouldn't be good, but as a live album. But so it is good as a live album. They are different, but I wouldn't say there's any one of them I really like more, other than possibly Take Me to River might be better than the studio version. But other than it, I'm not sure if there's any of them I really do. So it's not my favorite Talking Heads album. I mean, I like several of the albums better. As I said, in this original LP track list, which is what I'm looking at here, it's not really the best track listing put together. I don't know who actually assembled this for the album, for the track listing for the LP and, release as opposed to the movie. The set list in the movie and that they actually played was good, but I'm a little mixed on how much I actually like the track listing on the original album release. Just, it's missing some of the songs that I consider to be the highlights of the movie. No Cross-Eyed and Painless, no Heaven, no Genius of Love. Which is one of the ones that in particular, Genius of Love is one I could see being better than the studio version. I could probably think it is. So that's just me personally. You may disagree. But just them not being on here was a little sad. But there is, of course, the deluxe version on Spotify. I'm sure that's probably had some sort of physical release at some point. Probably on CD, possibly on vinyl. I'm not sure. As I said, the one I have, though, is an 80s pressing, so. But that's about it for me. So, I quite enjoyed it, and I enjoyed watching the movie, and I thought the deluxe version of the movie, just the movie, I guess, soundtrack, audio, actually, the audio channel on whatever you were watching on is probably better than the LP album, but, still, I do like the LP album, too. There's not a bad song on it. It's just, it's the way the track listing's arranged and which songs were picked, I found kind of, what?
I will make a comment, one last comment. I do think the version of GSM, I enjoyed the version of GSM of Love on Heel better than the studio version. But that is a Tom Tom Club song.
That would be one that I would say is probably better, except for the fact that it's not actually on the version of the album I own, which is the LP version, sadly. So I don't know really which version of this album we're actually weighing, but I had to give my thoughts on the LP, a kind of original release, because that is the OG 80s track listing. It's contemporaneous with the film's original theatrical release. Alright, the next album was Illmatic by Nas, and we're going to be starting with you, Ben.
I also really like this album. So this is now 2 albums in this one. I really liked it. I had not listened to this album before. I had heard the song New York State Line before, though. I really enjoyed grooving, is that the right word? Moving out, relaxing, listening to it. Obviously, a lot of their work-up themes are not particularly relaxing on here. They are very bleak, and I think he does a good job of conveying a more realistic picture of kind of drug dealers or poverty than some groups at the time were doing. I think that this is actually a strength of his East Coast versus West Coast in this instance. A lot of G-Funk out of the West Coast, though it sounds very good, but it tends to be, yeah, I don't want to say glorifying, because that was the criticism at the time, and it was not how they felt. Tupac in particular wasn't really glorifying it that much. Mostly. But I do think kind of a socially conscious element predates G-Funk on the West Coast. Of a socially conscious rap element being taken into the portrayal of, drug dealers and other marginalized groups, criminal elements. In this album, I think worked very well. Gives it a reflection that, besides this good use of sampling, I thought the sampling on Life's a Bitch was quite good. Sampling on New York State of Mind is, of course, excellent. That I think the more reflective tone on this album allowed it to take up what is, kind of, there was a phrase that gangster rap, of course, when we think of gangster rap, we think of both Eastern and Western coast, but especially Western coast at this time, West Coast. That the gangster rap at this time was sometimes described as the CNN of the streets. That was the counter to the criticism by the media that it was glorifying it too much, of violence or being a gangsta, etc. Like the response to that was, no, it's not doing that. It's the CNN of the streets. Now some things, and I'm about to name a song I think is quite good, but I think, I wouldn't say it's glorifying it. It seems like kind of a depressing life, but it's kind of ludicrous. It's, Good Day by Ice Cube. That's a, it's sometimes flows with glorification, but it's more of a, it's just an exaggerated version of it, which is fine. I think that that's a good song. I think Nas is a lot closer to attaining this CNN of the streets ideal. Giving very, I think, poetic, but still realistic, which is, of course, very difficult to do. Depiction of his time growing up. I thought that the song that did this the best is Life's a Bitch. I like this, well, besides this jazz sound, it's a jazz rap. I thought that the way it portrayed, being a thief, growing up, that, I mean, I don't know if it's Nas himself. Maybe Matthew could speak to this, or somebody that knows more about Nas than I do. But I thought the way it portrayed that was like, I'm happy to be 20 still, though. I'm surprised I got this far, because Life's a Bitch. I thought that this was a really strong song. But I think this album as a whole, it sounds really good, its production is really good. And I thought it's like a weird line. It's in at halftime. Well, he does have like a pun involving what's known as the F-slaw.
Yeah.
I mean, the pun is that it's, it's like I'm a switch like that. And of course, switch is a gay community term. For somebody who switches walls. It's also a term for shaking your ass in the gay community. It means two different things. He seems to be putting both of those things, with also then a switch as a bundle of sticks, which is what that word actually means. Another word for that is fasces, which is where the word fascist comes from, oddly. But It's this bundle of sticks, right? I'm a switch. It is actually a very clever pun, despite having very slow in it. So I'm not mad about it. It is just oddly clever, and I think this is a good instance in like the most offensive comment in this album. It's still very clever. I think this album is quite clever and insightful and reflective, and also just sounds really good production-wise. So this album, gave a thumbs up for me.
All right, Matthew.
This is also another excellent album. I think this is probably the best matchup that we've had so far. Nas is one of my favorite rappers of all time. And this, he does the rare trick of where his best work is his first album, which is incredible because there's a bunch of great music artists and acts who do great albums, but like their first albums are like okay to decent, but then like as they went on, they basically get better. Nas just hit this out of the park with Illmatic. This is highly regarded as, you know, the greatest hip hop album of all time, which is something that, you know, it lives up to the hype. I think my favorite, like the first song I heard from this album was "The World Is Yours." I've heard that song a bunch of times. I really enjoyed "Life's a Bitch," especially the sampling, which is a Gap Band sample of "Yearning for Your Love," and like I think one of the strengths of this album is the sampling, as it ain't hard to tell has the sampling of "Human Nature" by Michael Jackson, which is like really cool. And once you basically, you know, hear about, you know, basically you look for the samplings. It's just as like a cool Easter eggs. I think Nas's flow is amazing. I think it's like one of the best flows. That like there's only like a few things. Basically, like as said, the use of the F slur was a bit much. But I feel like, since I wasn't alive when Illmatic was made, I feel like this was how people in my generation felt when Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar was released back in the '90s, where it's kind of has the same similar-ish like kind of vision of basically a young African American man or boy is basically growing up in the rougher parts of American society, and this is just a masterpiece. I think if you're like a hip hop fan, and if you objectively speaking, just saying, "Oh yeah, what's the top 5 best rap albums of all time?" and you don't have Illmatic, I think you're kind of missing out, or let's have your street cred question, because this is a masterpiece of an album.
Fan.
So I have never really been a big fan of rap music. I think it just never really has appealed to me. There was a little brief period when I was maybe like 7 or so, and just like, oh, that's pretty cool. But for the most part, this has never really spoke to me. However, this record made me go like, this record like blew my mind. This is hands down the best rap album I've ever heard in my life. Like, and I don't even think anything has come particularly close. This is unbelievable. It totally made me just like, I get it. Like the genre makes more sense to me now. This one album just totally like was just that good that it just changed my entire perception on the genre. Not that I was ever like a hater, because like I don't really hate any music, but it was never anything I would go out of my way to seek out. But listen to this, I listened to it multiple times, and I'm like starting to think probably gonna branch out, check out some of his other albums because it was just that good. I don't even think there's like a bad song on this album. One person I really want to shout out is DJ Premier, because I think he does the best production. NY State of Mind, Memory Lane, and Represent. might have the best beats on the record. I think he did a fantastic job on this album. I mean, as did every other producer, but I wanted to give a specific shout out to him because I think he did an excellent job. I liked hearing Q-Tip. I like Q-Tip. And I just think it was just overall fantastic album. I don't have too much to say. They all kind of nothing else that Ben and Matthew didn't add too much in, but from my own personal perspective, this album was just great.
Alright, thank you, Fan. As for me, yeah, I like this album. This is sort of the style of hip-hop I prefer anyways. I'm not a huge hip-hop listener. I usually kind of prefer this sort of mid-90s style. More so than 80s or modern. I did like several songs here. I like New York State of Mind. I like For All Is Yours. I like Halftime. I liked Midway Lane. Yeah, the usage of F-Slow was kind of problematic. I'll agree with Matthew there. But overall, I think it was a pretty well-rounded and good hip-hop album. As I said, I'm not, like, the world's foremost hip-hop listener, so my ability to comment on maybe how this compares to some other hip-hop albums is maybe a bit lacking, but I did like this one.
Now let's get to the hard part. Which album do you like better?
Alright. You hold the man? So, we're going on to which album each one of us liked better. We'll start with you, Ben. Which album did you like better?
Oh god, this is difficult. Come Back to Me.
Alright, we're going over to Matthew.
I'm gonna follow Ben and just say Come Back to Me.
Hopefully, no, not everybody says "come back to me," and we just do it in an infinite loop. All right. Up next is Fan.
You might want to come back to me. No, I'm just kidding.
Sounds familiar.
So, the Nas record was great, but Talking Heads are literally in my DNA of who I am as a musician and as a songwriter and just as a fan of music. So, as great as the Nas record was, I'm going with Stop Making Sense.
Alright, well, as for me, I will say, and this is where kind of what I said earlier comes into play, the Talking Heads album is great. I like it, the way it sounds better, just unambiguously, than Illmatic, but, as I said, there wasn't anything on the Talking Heads album I really couldn't do without as long as the studio version still existed. That said, it's still a style of music I like better. It's still a style of music I would listen to more. So I am picking Stop Making Sense as the better album here. But I will say, if I was given one of those choices where it's like, pick one and the other one is a waste from history forever, I would probably pick Illmatic just because the studio versions of the Talking Heads songs would still exist. That said, I am picking Stop Making Sense for now. Matthew, what were you trying to say?
Okay, I know what I'm gonna pick. I think both of these albums are fantastic pieces of work. They are gonna rank really high in my rankings of these albums of the album club. With that being said, my final choice is going to be the one that has the sampling of Yearning for Your Love by the Gap Band and Human Nature by Michael Jackson. So I'm going to pick, by the slimmest of margins, Illmatic by Nas.
Alright. And Ben, finally, last up, back to you.
This is extremely difficult. I really enjoyed this thing about. But in terms of value added, as Chris, you said, I think that while Stop Making Sense has many excellent versions of these songs, I still have these other Talking Heads albums to listen to those other versions. It's good to have both of them. I'm glad that it exists. Absolutely. In terms of an artistic achievement, though, which Stop Making Sense is a great artistic achievement, above, and as an extension to these other albums. Ultimately, though, I think Illmatic is a better album, not by much, but in terms of its novelty, not novelty in like the cheap way of like a novelty album. Its novelty as like an innovation musically by a new artist at the time. I think it has to be the better album just because of that. I think quality wise, no amount equal though.
I will say just, before I give the tally that, Stop Making Sense, it's a great album, but it's a better movie. You don't get the real dancing, you don't get the cinematography, you don't get the full track listing, really, at least on the LP version of the album. Great album, better movie. And yeah, so that was a tie, I believe. Me and Fan both voted for Stop Making Sense, and Ben and Matthew both voted for Illmatic, although Ben actually used my own reasoning for his justification of it, so that's kind of interesting. Certainly kind of a more uneven pairing here, just in terms of kind of formatting as to what the albums actually do, and also it brings up kind of a somewhat more loaded question as to what does being the better album actually mean, as opposed to sometimes what's pretty cut and dry. Alright, well, you all want to take a guess at who picked what album?
I think Stop Making Sense was picked by Chris. Though I can also see basically anyone here picking it. I'm pretty sure Illmatic was picked by Matthew.
Both of these albums were picked by Matthew. So good job, Matthew.
It is true. It is true. Although I will say, I think that the Stop Making Sense versions of these songs, like a couple of these, like Life During Wartime and Burning Down the House, I would rather listen to the Stop Making Sense version than the studio. The studio is great, but there's a certain level of like ecstasy and excitement that the live version brings out to these songs that it does in the studio version, but it's like multiplied to the umpth degree.
I agree with Matthew. I think that these live versions, almost all of them, surpass the studio. I think that they got the percussion, they just have so much energy. Talking Heads are a tremendous live band. They have so much energy, so much power to them. I mean, and gotta give credit, of course, to to the whole band, Burn, France, Harrison, and Tina, but also to Bernie Worrell, Alex Ware, Steve Scales, Edna Holt, and Lynn Mabry for their contributions to the album. I mean, Steve Scales on percussion, Alex Ware on guitar, especially, totally kill it all night. So you gotta give credit to them too for just helping bring these songs alive. So just want to shout them out.
Alright, well that wraps it up for another episode. Well, if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. We all really appreciate it. Please be sure to like and subscribe. That does help me out a lot, and sometimes I think people forget to do it. And once again, have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next video. See you later.